It is now thought dump time. I'm not going to try to make any sort of long-winded introduction to this. I'm just going to make a mention that this is not my first time trying this, because I actually did screw up the last time and completely forgot to talk about Tellarknights. I don't know why. It's kind of stupid of me, and there was a bit of a screw up with bringing up this bloody page. But aside from that, I felt like I just wanted to redo this just to... because it's definitely a handful of really good points that I just completely and utterly forgot about, and decided I wanted to redo that to try to fit those in. Hopefully get it within half an hour. The last attempt at this went for about 33 minutes. So just going to go through the full list once again for the banned cards. 4 of them: Apocryphal Towers, Shurit Strategist in the Necros, El Shadow Construct, and Evilswarm Exciton Knight. It's a pronounced Exciton. Thankfully, I don't actually have to worry too much about arguing that point, since people aren't going to talk about it too much once this list goes into effect, because they won't give a shit. It's banned. Limited, Cliffort Scout, Graf Malabranch of the Burning Abyss, Mathematician, Necros of Brianak, Unicorn, Ritual Beast Ulti Hawk, El Shadow Fusion, and Rota. Seer is the only semi-limited card, and the 4 cards to be put to 3 are Chaos Sorcerer, Legendary 6 Samurai, Shien, Spellbook of Fate, and Gear. So, let's go all the way back up to the top and start talking about this degenerate piece of shit. Now, I can understand why some people wouldn't agree with this, just because they put Scouts on one, so Clifforts really aren't going to be much of a thing in the future. At the same time, though, this card was so degenerate that it made players... you had to play really bad cards just for the sole purpose of getting rid of this damn thing. And that really just depended on the deck you were playing. You know, if you're playing Tellers, you could run either Ronnie McDougall or Rongo Miniad. I'm pretty sure that's the pronunciation. Or what was the other one? Excalibur. Over in the States, you could play Diamond Crab King. We couldn't do that down here because it wasn't legal, so I believe the Necros players in particular went with Zubaba General, since you could just equip something like a Trish to it, and it just beats over pretty much everything, including towers. But doesn't alter the fact that it's a really, really shitty card that just is designed for win more against the one freaking deck and the one card in the one deck. And the fact that you just can't do anything to this, it really makes it ridiculous. Like, if you're going to make any sort of turbo-based deck now with Clifforts, you're pretty much going to be either running Obelisk, which is considerably inferior aside from the fact that it's 4K, or Skybase, which, why the hell would you run Skybase? It's snatch stealing sort of thing is kind of cool if you want to just rip your opponent a new one. But if you're going to tribute for Skybase, you're probably going to tribute a carrier, and you're probably going to be getting rid of your opponent's monster anyway. So there's not much point. You know what I mean? So, Towers is a deserving hit by an absolute country mile. Shurit, on the other hand, I guess if anything, it's just to make sure that Necros Attrition just drops dead in a pile of crap. Because as far as I'm aware, you'd have to, tribute something like Exa plus a level 4 or something like that. Yeah, getting Necros Attrition layout is not going to be very easy now with Shurit banned. And it's not even going to really matter anymore because of the other 2 hits that Necros took, pretty much slaughtering the deck and rendering it nigh unplayable. This thing just allowed you to plus a whole lot, and you didn't... You really don't mind us when this card is part of the equation. So the fact that it's gone now means the deck is completely and utterly on life support. But even then, the life support's not going to help it in the slightest. It's screwed. I initially thought that this may not have necessarily deserved to be hit, but the fact that it makes Trishula easily makes me think that it's probably better off if this thing be exiled from the game. So, and it has, and we just move on. El Shadow Construct, there it is. They've put this from 3 straight to 0. They're kind of just OCG copycats, copycatting OCG. I don't know how to word that, but yeah, this thing pretty much was Shadows in and of itself. So losing this means Shadows can only really function to like they can't really work with light decks anymore. So they have to find an alternate route. It's not a particularly It's not a particularly difficult thing though, because you could still possibly play. You could possibly play these Shadows now with just like a heroic engine or something. Wait, what? Computers performance? I don't give a shit. Piss off. I've got no idea what the hell that was. You could probably like use it with like just the heroic Challenger engine and just not run the clowns, and maybe also run, I don't know, something like the Gigabyte or whatever the hell. You could do something silly like that, because then you could still use Anoyatilis and Shekinaga. I mean, honestly, who knows? But I think Shadows, just as their own deck and as their own powerhouse, has been absolutely crippled by this loss. I don't think they'll be anywhere near as good as they are. Like, I don't think they'll even be that. Like, they'll be infinitely better if they had one, but they don't even have that. So, Shadows are pretty much fucked just by the construct alone. And not even mentioning Fusion, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. Exciton. Now, I have some mixed feelings about Exciton. I initially thought it wasn't really overly deserving, because it's like you can fight back and sort of sack your opponent if they put you at a really bad disadvantage. It's like a sort of a comeback card. At the same time, though, not every player knows to really count numbers of cards, so they can just be they could just overextend and then just get punished by it. Some people think that's unfair. Honestly, I don't, because if you're going to really like high-end events, you've got to be able to account for just about everything. You have to continue to have this card in the back of your mind. Honestly, I really don't know. Like, the fact that it's gone means that people just don't have to worry about it if it's really that toxic, which I personally don't think it is. But at least it's like something that you can just you can just replace it with something else, and it's not really going to do a whole lot to rank 4 decks anyway. Like, yes, it blows shit up, but you don't really rely on that a whole lot. At least I never had to. Usually when I had Exciton, I very seldom used it. Usually I'd find myself needing Exciton when I wasn't running it, which was kind of annoying, but I think just for the time being, we just have to pretty much deal with it. Some people are just like, yay, good that it's gone. Some people are incredibly pissed off. Piss off, Windows! What the hell is with performance? I'm telling you, there's something about this computer that's just like, no, you're not allowed to record this thought dump. We'll do everything we possibly can to make sure you stop this. To stop you from doing this. But whatever. Clifford Scout, and I made sure that this thing wasn't going to go anywhere. I don't know what's causing this weird sort of effect though, but it's fine because we only have to look at the card, and people will know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. Clifford Scout put to 1. Yeah, bye bye Cliffords. Laters, you guys are gone. I mean, you can still play it for fun, and it can still do some really silly plays and be a bit sacky. But this is their primary search card. It was bad enough that they had the sacrifice it to 1, and now they've got this at 1. It's really not that great. Clifford's relied a considerable amount on adding their stuff to hand, because they pretty much had to draw into their stuff or add their stuff to hand and whatnot. With less stuff to use to add to hand, it just slows the deck down considerably, and that's what's gonna be the nail in the coffin for this card. So it's unfortunate to see it being put to 1, but it's basically a bit of a changing of the guard in regards to the meta. It's killed off everything that's been meta in the last 14 months, with the exception of Tellers and Yang Zing. But then again, Yang Zing wasn't the hugest sort of deck, and Tellers I mean, they won Worlds, but that was with a combined ban list that had Rotor at 1 anyway, so who the hell even cares about Rotor being put to 1? Like, a lot of rogue decks got hurt by that, but we're not even going to talk about Rotor at the moment, because we still have to talk about, like, 5 more cards. The first of which is Graf, because Graf is one hell of a hit. This deserved to be hit, because the way you can loop this with Seer and Dante, and the ease at which you can get the thing out of the deck with Tour Guide meant that you basically went through a considerable amount of your deck on your first turn and had yourself pretty much set up. That's the thing about BAs, that they can set themselves up really quickly just by using Tour Guide and Graf. And now the both of those are at 1. So, I mean, if you open the Tour Guide, then it's essentially kind of sack. But if you don't, then you are in a bit of a situation, because the first thing you want to do is get the Graf, and 1 Graf means your chances of milling it are lowered, the chances of opening it are rather low as well, and those are the situations where you really want it the most, so you can get yourself set up and get stuff engraved so that you can loop it around. So it's definitely slowed this deck down. It's really, really good for people that hate this deck, because now they may not have to worry about it too much in the future. The next card to be hit is Mathematician. Okay, we're good. Good computer. Okay, this card did not get. This card there, if I can even talk, I really can't. If you've been subscribed to me for any length of time, you'd know this. Mathematician did not deserve to get hit in the slightest, as far as I'm concerned, because the only thing you really used Mathematician for was either Clownblade, which wasn't even doing that much in the first place, or Shadows, which I think to be fair, they did use Mathematician in Shadows, but it wasn't like a be-all end-all sort of card. Actually, no, what the hell am I thinking? It was their main normal summon. But the point is, if they hit Shadows that much and pretty much killed the deck off, then there's no reason to hit Mathematician. It's excessive. It's really not necessary. If you wanted to put it to 2, then maybe I would understand, but putting it to 1 is ridiculous. Even if it does have the additional draw power when it dies, but that's only when it dies by battle. That's really easy to play around. There's really nothing about Mathematician that tells me that it is deserving of any sort of hit, unless there's something that they're seeing that I and a lot of other players aren't. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay, so what's been hit? What else has been hit through 1? Necros of... Have to go in alphabetical order. I'm gonna have to go with Necros of Brionac. Although, if you ban Shuret, then there's not really much point to put Brionac to 1, because you're already like minusing a whole lot. It's like, for these sorts of things, it's really only... It seems excessive, but I guess it's really just to make sure that the deck is about as dead as it can get without actually killing it. You know, this is slaying Necros to within an inch of their life, not like completely rendering Synchro Cat dead by banning the 1 card that the deck needs to thrive. So, yeah, Necros are fucked, but they're not dead. They're playable, but they're very, very bad. They are a portrait painted in 6 different shades of shit now. And that's because of the lack of search cards. And they didn't hit Manju and Senju, so they've got those at max power, but considering that they've got most of their ritual monsters put in the bin, it's just gonna slaughter them more than that they can handle. So it's really not that great. Like, Brionac as a bad hit, and not like bad as in, you know, yeah, it's not like bad as in they shouldn't have done it. It's just bad as in they really didn't want that to happen, and then it just did. Unicorn, though, is far, far worse for the deck. Unicorn made so many of the plays. It was integral for the Genlock when that was around, and that's around in the format or two ago. It also just made sure the opponent really couldn't make any outs from their extra deck. I mean, they could make something that was bigger than it, but whenever I did that, I kept running into decisive armor, so they just got over me anyway and won because of it. Um, and this it was really like this got back Shuret as well. Like even when Shuret was at 1, you just ditch this to get the Shuret back, and then you just use it to spam shit. So this was probably more devastating a hit for Necros than Brionac was, just because of its recyclability, its general purpose. It's just really so much life force of the deck that's just been taken out just by the removal of 2 Unicores. So that was rather painful for it. It's basically slaughtered the deck now. There's not much else to really say about it. Ritual Beast Ulti Cannahawk. Not gonna lie, this is a surprising hit. Some people like really wanted to see Ritual Beasts die. I'm not gonna lie, I don't like Ritual Beasts at all. I kind of hate the deck with an Undying Passion. So in a biased opinion, I should be like, yes, sweet, this thing got hit, Ritual Beast got hit, yay, they're not as good anymore. To be fair, it kind of is to an extent, because it just searches your stuff. It searches the stuff like the steeds and the bonds and whatnot, and that was basically the foundation for winning all of the games. And so with the search power, the main search power card being put to 1, it means that they've got to be a bit more. They got to be a bit more conservative with that Cannahawk. Although I think for the most part they can function on 1 Cannahawk. I've not played the deck. I played against the deck a whole lot of times, but I just tend to not really pay much attention, which is a terrible idea, because if they special summon something more than once a turn, then I have absolutely no idea that happened, and that could screw me over. But at least I can go in knowing that if they've used their Cannahawk, they're not going to just contact into another one and do even more searching. So, as for whether or not it deserved it, I'm just going to put this in the changing of the guard sort of thing, like with the Burning Abyss hits and the Cliff Forts and the Necros and the Channel stuff hit. I'm just going to put that all over in the changing of the guard stuff. It's just completely new stuff. But I still think Ritual Beasts can function even on the 1 ulti Cannahawk. So someone who's a bit more of an expert of it could just say, well, who actually gives a shit? They should have just put something else at 1 or something like that, or hit the deck, or not even hit it at all because it wasn't good enough. But whatever. El Shadow Fusion. El Shadow Fusion, out of the 3 fusion spells, El Shadow Fusion was by a country mile the best fusion spell. This could be an Vanity's Emptiness in and of itself. You could just make Winder when they activate a special summon effect. They've used that special summon effect, they special summon that monster, they can't do anything else. So hitting this was pretty much... A lot of people consider this a formality to be hit. They just sort of saw it coming, and can't say I didn't see it coming, because it is a pretty devastating card. It causes OTKs. It is a multi-speed card, because you can either wait, it can either be reactive and make the Winder, like I said earlier, or you can just push it and go full aggro and OTK the opponent. So it's the diversity in its usefulness just made it far too powerful. It needed to get put to a number that wasn't 3 or 2. I mean, it might have been it would be excessive to ban it, but I wouldn't have been surprised if they went and banned that. So, but they've put it to 1, so Shadows will just have to stick with the regular old crummy Shadow Fusion, which has its merits, but is obviously not as good as El Shadow Fusion. Rota hurts a lot of the rogue decks, rogue warrior decks. It hurts Ignites, it hurts Constellas. As a matter of fact, I was actually building a Constellar deck that was running no Algiades for the purpose of making the deck less susceptible to hand traps. With Rota at 1, you now have to play Algiades, or the deck is too slow and it's bad. And so in order to be successful with that deck, you have to make it susceptible to hand traps, which is really, really bad, because my locals, every man and his dog runs hand traps. They're just literally everywhere. It's like a plague. So Castellas are pretty much slayed by this. Um, Heroes don't give a fuck. If you were running 3 of this and 3 E-Call, then what the hell were you on? The Rota was just better because it was more general purpose. And if you had and like usually I'd run 3 Rota, 1 E-Call, and then just side the E-Call out if I needed to. I could just stick with the Rotas and it'd be fine. Here I just have to do the reverse and just side the Rota out if I don't need it. That then brings up the debate as to whether or not people want to do the OCG way and go with Tin Goldfish, or stick with the Goblinberg. From my point of view, I'd probably stick with the Goblinberg, because if I got Bailid, I've at least got a 1400 stick, as opposed to 800, with the 2k butt that's completely useless because the monster's in attack mode. Satellas also don't really give a shit about this, because they can just sort of focus more towards getting Deneb or Tear, that sort of stuff, out of the deck, using stuff like Skybridge. They can also just run more monster revival cards. This thing is going to show up all of the damn time, and I'm going to have to I have to apologize in advance for all the times in the future that it's going to be popping up. But anyways, yeah, the Skybridge is Call the Haunted. There is Oasis of Dragon Souls. So I feel like for the future, Satellas could maybe cut down on Denebs and maybe just run Eunuchs and just use Eunuch to dump everything in the graveyard. Then just bring it back with their revival cards. There's really not much of a reason not to do that, because they can also use that with Skybridge, just dump the Deneb and then Skybridge into Altair to get the Deneb out another Altair, and then they can just overlay for whatever rank 4 they want. So Satellas aren't going to give two knobs of goat shit about this. If they were going to hit Satellas, which I feel like they probably should have, they really should have hit Altair. A lot of people said that they should hit Deneb. I disagree with this, because while Deneb can search Deneb is the primary searcher of the deck. Even if they had one Deneb, they can still loop that, search Altair, search Altair, search Altair. Whereas if they had the one Altair, they have to have a lot of stuff that will bring it back from the graveyard in order to use it. It really sort of kills off the use of stuff like Vega. They have to be a bit more... They have to get themselves into more of a position to utilize those repeat monster effects and just swarm the field. I feel like Altair would be a lot more crippling a hit for Satellas than Deneb will ever be. The only thing with Deneb being hit to 1 is, 1, you're not going to open with it as often, which, unsurprisingly. 2, people can side stuff like D-Crow, Cycle Reader if you're playing Gears, or just any sort of machine deck, or just if you want to play Cycle Reader in general, to just banish the one Deneb, and so they just don't have that Deneb anymore. But yeah, I still maintain Altair is a much bigger hit. As for Seer loops Graph. Graph loops a whole bunch of shit from the deck. Well, no, Graph gets a whole bunch of stuff from the deck. Seer loops Graph. So when you combine Seer and Graph, you're running 6 cards that basically get shit back, get shit out of the deck, and blah 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 blah. That's how the Burning Abyss rolls. Now you only have 3 of those cards, one of which is the one that summons from the deck, 2 of which summon from the graveyard. If they put this to 1, I reckon they would have completely slain Burning Abyss to the point where they were just about unplayable. Here, it gives me the thought that they may still have potential. They may not be quite as fast, though, which is probably what's going to kill them against something like Cosmo in particular. I still think there's potential in the Burning Abyss, just because Seer was only put to 2 as opposed to 1. So, I'm obviously still going to be interested. Like, I know I quit playing the deck and I got rid of my Dantes, but I decided to take interest in the deck again, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes out and see what people are going to do with that. As for the unlimited cards, since Seer was the only semi-limited, Chaos Sorcerer. This is literally the only one that literally everyone just brushes aside and just doesn't really give a shit about, because Chaos Sorcerer has been moving around the ban lists for years. It was banned, and it was put to 2, then it was put to 1, it's put to 2, back to 1, back to 2, back to 3, back to 2, back to 1, back to 67,000 or some shit. But now it's at 3. I will stop short of saying that's probably where it's going to stay, because Chaos Sorcerer is a pretty savage card if a deck actually decides to make the card good. So honestly, who knows? I mean, Chaos Sorcerer is the type of card where if it moves somewhere on the ban list, people aren't really going to care that much, unless Chaos Sorcerer was broken enough to the point where it needed to be hit, and then people were like, yay, it got hit because of that, and whatnot, and not like anybody should really give a shit. Chaos Sorcerer is just far inferior to BLS, so there you go. As for Legendary 6 Samurai, okay, you know what? Let's try that. Much better. Because I actually had to type all of this section in just to get the friggin' thing to pop up in the search engine, which was really stupid. But yeah, 6 Samurai Shien. The only thing that kind of annoys me is that I still hadn't actually gotten my second copy of this. I still only have the one copy, and now I'm going to get 2 more, which is a bit if anybody's freaking got them. But this I'm not going to mind, just as long as they don't bring back Gateway and keep this. If they bring back Gateway, then they have to put this back to 1, because it'll be far too silly. I'd rather not take the risk even. But you know, 6 Samurais can be a bit of a dark horse sort of deck with their boss monster at 3. The only thing that that the Shen is really lacking in, though, is the attack power. 25 is solid, but there's a bunch of shit that can really just get over that. It's not really difficult. Infernoids could just slay the hell out of this, so I think that's probably the thing that's going to kill the 6 Samurais. Any hopes that the 6 Samurais have of being good this format is the fact that there are decks that can just use their own monster effects, get around the traps, get around Shien, get around Beast Sparkion, and then just beat the hell out of the Shien just because it's not powerful enough. That's probably what's going to kill the 6 Samurai's chances off there. And so, for that matter, let him have the 3rd Shien, because the Shens just aren't going to stop the farm girl from putting the Forerunner on the board and saying, hi, you're dead. So, that's what it is. Spell Book of Fates. This is a really bloody cheap card. Really kind of dirty in my opinion. It's actually kind of sack. As far as I'm concerned, it was completely undeserving to go to 3. Regardless of the performances that Spellbook's put in, I still don't think it was I still don't think it was unlimited worthy. It's really too cheap. It's not completely and utterly unbalanced, because of course you still need to have a spellcaster to use it. But the fact that you can just banish the fact that it just doesn't target and just banishes pretty much anything, people are going to get very much annoyed by this card when the bloody thing comes down. It just, like, for me personally, it drives me insane. So you can give me crap about being salty about this card, but I have legitimate reasons to be salty. I've had a pretty terrible history about this, and so just its cheapness, its ease, it's the ease at which you can add it to your hand, put it back in your deck with Tower. I really don't understand this. I don't think it was deserving to be moved from 1. If you want to put it at 2, then I wouldn't have liked that, but sure, whatever. I'll let him have that extra 1. But putting it straight back to 3 was really bad. It was not a good move. As for Giga Gear, this one's interesting. It brings Giga Gears back to essentially full strength, which I feel like they can afford to do since it is a slow sort of deck. It's very much Helmet. It's slower than Satellas, because Satellas just have all of their search cards in the way of their spells, so that they can essentially open with more than... So they're essentially running more than 3 copies of Deneb or Altair in the deck, as opposed to this, where you're only running the 3 armors and however many augurs that you're running. My first draft isn't actually running any augurs because I don't think it's necessary. But the Giga Gear is kind of interesting. It gave Gigas the option to just make Gigant really quickly, and everything pretty much revolves around Gigant in the Giga Gear deck. So it's interesting to see this come back. I personally like it. I kind of grew fond of Giga Gears when I picked them up and started playing them. So to have the opportunity to play 3 Giga Gear is personally pretty nice. I think a lot of other players will be interested in seeing this. Some people might hate Giga Gears and just be like raging about it. Some people will just be hating on Xian, wink wink, Richie. So I think this is just deal with it, take it. If you go up against it, put in a good effort, and you might win. I don't know. Give it a go. But there wasn't really much of a reason for it to stay at 1, so have it back at 3, enjoy your time, be happy. So that would be just about it for this thought dump video. Overall, they definitely changed the guard. They have definitely opened up the way for Cosmo to completely rip this format up. Magispectors will be doing a whole lot. I actually haven't really read up much on the Magispectors. I have no idea what the hell they do. So I am probably going to suck in the early stages of the format. So if you see me putting in some rather disappointing tournament reports, then you'll know why. But for now, as opposed to things that would have been nice to see happen, blah 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 blah, free Stratos, blah 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 blah. You don't need to hear me go on a tangent about Stratos again. I will continue to maintain it doesn't deserve to be on the ban list, but Konami will continue to maintain that it does, and their opinion is the only one that matters. Whatever. One thing I actually don't really like, though, and I could go on a bit of a tangent about, is Dragon Ravine. Even if it gets put to 3, Dragoonities aren't going to be that great. Blue Eyes and Red Eyes, I don't even know why we're talking about Blue Eyes and Red Eyes. Red Eyes in particular, because it's just better, isn't going to run it, because they just run Dragon Shrine, which is just infinitely better, because it essentially is a search card for Blackstone. Is there any real reason for you to keep it at 2? Oh, we forgot. That's not an excuse. If they make, like, you would imagine a corporation like Konami, if they made these sorts of ban lists, they look through the list, see if there's anything that needed to be moved, and also check the state of the meta, see which decks are doing great. If they've been around for a long time, move them out of the way, start selling your shit. You have to. They would not leave a stone unturned. So they've obviously quite clearly decided that Dragon Ravine does not need to go to 3. It's undeserving to go to 3. Which, why? Why is it undeserving to go to 3? I'll tell you why. It's not undeserving. It should be going to 3. Like, I put a Actually, you know what? Let's. Ugh. Okay, come on. Wait, there was a Dragon Ravine action field? Really? I'll have a look at that later. Yeah, this thing deserves to go to 3. I actually had a Dragoonity deck put together on DN that was running 3 Ravine because I thought it was pretty much a formality that this is going to go to 3 in this upcoming list, and then next minute I know it's still at 2. You trolled. You fucking cappered me, mate. Absolutely savage capper. But I don't know. I guess the next list, it is literally not a matter of if they'll put Dragon Ravine to 3, but when, because it's definitely going to 3 at some point. A lot of people were expecting it to be this list. It didn't. So screw it. Do it in the next list. It's better late than never, because Dragoonities are really not gonna do a thing even with Ravine at 3. Some people won't believe that Ravine is fine at 2. They don't need the 3rd Ravine because of Divine Lance. They play Divine Lance as a card, but it's really not worthy of being run unless you run stuff like unless you run it in an engine with like Hidden Armory. The thing is, Dragoonities need their normal summon, so that's the annoying thing. And I feel like the only time people are going to think that that Hidden Armory engine is good is if they bring back an equipped spell that's actually really silly. That's why Hidden Armory just died when Snatch Steal got banned, because nobody really gave a shit about the thing anymore, but they were just like, Snatch Steal's gone, oh, it's bad. Enactment of Premature Burial is just going to come back and then, like, they'll just bring it back again. It'll be really, really stupid. That being said, I actually don't think Premature Burial needs to stay banned. I'm not going to lie. If people want to argue that point, then I might put up a video detailing like stuff that on the list that I feel may not necessarily need to stay on the ban list. For that one, I'm not going to include Stratos because then I'm going to be on a 20-minute long tangent. But I've already been on this tangent for bloody long enough, and I really should be winding this video down because it is how long? 35 minutes. It's actually longer than the previous one. Lovely. So, yeah, that's it. That's my opinions. That's about as much as I could possibly get out on the second attempt. I'm not going to bother with the third attempt. I think I've talked about as much as I possibly could think of. If I think of something that absolutely needed to be talked about, then I will redo this list. But blah blah blah. I'm just going to bring an end to this video. I don't know what's going to be happening next. I'm not going to do a tournament report for this Sunday because it is, of course, sneak peek. I might do just a plain old deck list video. That being said, though, I have to sort of determine if that deck list would work in the new format. Actually, no, it should be fine. It's most likely going to be Psyframes. I should hopefully be completing the deck tomorrow once I get the bits and pieces. So we'll have to see what happens there. For the time being, this was a massive dump of thoughts. So until the next list, let's actually keep my thoughts stuck in my head, unless people want me to give my thoughts on cards that should come back off the ban list. So yeah, bye.